Camilla had always loved the finer things in life. From a young age, she admired grand palaces, sparkling jewels, and the elegance that came with royal ceremonies. The late Queen's golden limousine had fascinated her ever since she had seen it in photographs. The car gleamed with polished perfection, its golden body reflecting the sunlight like a treasure from a storybook. To Camilla, it was more than a car. It was a symbol of honor, prestige, and an unmatched legacy. She had dreamed for years of one day experiencing it, even if only for a short ride. On a bright spring afternoon, Camilla decided to visit the palace. She brought along her young son Oliver, a cheerful boy with curious eyes and a lively smile. Oliver had grown up hearing stories from his mother about the Queen, the palace, and the golden limousine. Today, he was just as excited as Camilla, eager to explore the majestic surroundings. As they approached the palace gates, Camilla's heart beat faster. The guards, dressed in their crisp uniforms, stood like statues, their expressions serious and disciplined. The golden limousine sat nearby, polished to a shine that made it look almost magical. Camilla stopped in her tracks and gazed at the car. She could hardly believe it was real. "This is it, Oliver," she said, her voice trembling slightly with excitement. "The Queen's famous limousine. One day we will ride in it." Oliver looked up at her, eyes wide with admiration. "It's so shiny, Mom. Can we see it closer?" Camilla smiled and held his hand. "Yes, we can. But we must be careful. The guards are very strict." Camilla took a deep breath and stepped forward, approaching the senior guard who was standing nearest to the limousine. His name was Thomas, a tall, stern man with years of experience serving the late Queen. His posture was perfect, and his eyes held the careful vigilance of someone who understood the weight of responsibility. "Good afternoon, Madam," Thomas said politely, bowing slightly. "May I help you?" Camilla straightened her back, her confidence growing. "I would like my son to ride in the Queen's golden limousine today," she said firmly. Her eyes sparkled with anticipation, and her voice carried a mix of excitement and determination. Thomas blinked in surprise. He had encountered many visitors, but he had never received a request like this, and certainly not with such insistence. "I am sorry, madam," he replied carefully. "This limousine is reserved for official royal duties. It is not for private use." Camilla's brow furrowed. She had expected some hesitation, but she did not expect a refusal. "Thomas, I am aware of the rules, but my son deserves this experience. It is only fair that he should have a chance to ride in this historic car." Thomas's jaw tightened slightly. He respected the enthusiasm of children and their parents, but he could not allow anyone to disrespect the legacy of the Queen. "Madam," he said firmly, "I cannot grant permission. My duty is to protect this vehicle, as it is a symbol of the late Queen's service and dedication." Oliver tugged at his mother's hand, sensing the rising tension. "Mom, maybe we should leave," he whispered softly, his young voice filled with concern. But Camilla ignored his words. She leaned closer to Thomas, her tone sharper now. "Do you understand who my son is? He deserves this ride. I am asking politely, but I expect cooperation." Thomas took a small step back, shocked by her persistence. He had seen bold requests before, but none so direct and demanding. He squared his shoulders and spoke with authority. "Madam, I must insist. No one may use the Queen's vehicle without proper permission. This decision is final." Camilla's eyes narrowed slightly. She felt frustration building within her. The golden limousine had always seemed within reach in her dreams, and now reality seemed to slip away. "I am disappointed," she said softly but firmly. "I had hoped for understanding. My son's experience should be valued, especially when it involves something so significant." Thomas remained calm. He understood her disappointment, but he also understood the importance of maintaining respect for the late Queen's legacy. He glanced at Oliver, who watched the exchange with a mixture of curiosity and nervousness. "Madam," Thomas said, "I understand your feelings, but this limousine is part of our history. It belongs to the people and the royal family, not to any individual request. To honor the late Queen, we must follow the rules she left behind." Camilla took a deep breath. She looked around and noticed a small crowd had gathered near the palace gates. People whispered among themselves, intrigued by the unusual scene. Some whispered about Camilla's bold request, while others spoke of the guard's dedication. She realized that her actions were drawing attention, and that her insistence could cause embarrassment not only to herself but to her son as well. Oliver squeezed her hand, looking up at her with a gentle reminder. "Mom, maybe we should listen to him," he said quietly. His voice carried a wisdom beyond his years, a calm that contrasted with the tension in his mother's expression. Camilla's heart softened for a moment. She looked at Thomas again, studying his serious expression. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, the dedication of a man who had served the late queen with loyalty and honor. His words were not meant to frustrate her, but to protect something precious. She took a deep breath and spoke again, her voice lower and more thoughtful. "I see. I understand your duty and respect it. Perhaps I was too eager in my request." Thomas's face relaxed slightly, the tension in his shoulders easing. "Madam, I appreciate your understanding. The Queen's legacy is meant to inspire respect and admiration, not personal demands. It is clear that you care deeply for your son, and that is admirable. But some experiences must be appreciated from a distance, at least for now." Camilla nodded slowly. She looked at Oliver, who smiled gently at her. His small hand still clutched hers, and she felt a wave of gratitude for his patience and understanding. "Oliver," she said softly, "perhaps we can admire the limousine today and imagine what it would be like to ride in it another time." Oliver's face lit up. "Yes, Mom. We can pretend it's ours for a little while. That will be fun." Camilla smiled, her frustration fading. She looked around at the crowd, which had begun to admire her change in attitude. People were whispering quietly, some nodding in approval of her patience. The tension dissolved into a respectful calm, and Camilla realized that the experience was more than just about riding in the limousine. It was about learning respect, patience, and the value of tradition. Thomas nodded to Camilla and Oliver. "Thank you for understanding, madam. It shows great character to respect rules and history." Camilla smiled warmly. "Thank you, Thomas. Today has been a lesson, and I will not forget it. Perhaps my son and I can find other ways to honor the Queen's memory." With that, Camilla and Oliver slowly walked away from the limousine, their hearts still filled with excitement and admiration. They spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the palace gardens, imagining stories of the Queen's travels, and laughing together at playful adventures. Though they had not ridden in the golden limousine, they had gained a memory far richer than any car could provide, a lesson about respect, patience, and the beauty of legacy. As the sun began to set, Camilla held Oliver's hand tightly. "Today was special, my dear," she said. "Even though we could not ride in the car, we experienced something far more important. We learned about respect, about patience, and about the legacy of those who came before us." Oliver nodded happily. "I liked it, Mom. We had an adventure even without the limousine." Camilla smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart. She realized that this day, though different from what she had imagined, was perfect in its own way. The golden limousine would always shine in her memory, not just as a car, but as a symbol of lessons learned and respect earned. And so, Camilla and Oliver left the palace, carrying with them a story of admiration, courage, and a newfound understanding of what truly mattered. The next morning, Camilla woke with a sense of determination. Though the events of the previous day had taught her a valuable lesson about patience and respect, a small part of her still longed to see the golden limousine up close, perhaps even ride in it one day. Oliver sat on the edge of the bed, brushing his hair neatly, his bright eyes sparkling with excitement for the day ahead. "Mom, what are we going to do today?" Oliver asked. Camilla smiled gently. "We will explore more of the palace grounds. We will imagine new adventures and learn more about the Queen and her history." Though Camilla spoke calmly, her mind kept returning to the golden limousine. She had imagined herself and Oliver riding in it, feeling the smooth leather seats, hearing the soft hum of the engine, and being surrounded by a symbol of royal elegance. She knew it was a dream, but dreams often have a way of pushing people to take bold steps. By mid-morning, Camilla and Oliver had reached the palace gates once again. The guards, including Thomas, were already on duty, their uniforms perfectly neat and their faces serious. Thomas noticed Camilla approaching and tilted his head slightly. He remembered the previous day's events clearly, and he braced himself for another encounter. "Good morning, madam," Thomas said politely. "May I assist you today?" Camilla's lips curved into a polite smile, but her eyes were determined. "Good morning, Thomas. I came to admire the Queen's limousine once again," she said. "And perhaps, if it is possible, allow my son a brief ride." Thomas's eyebrows rose slightly. He had expected her to respect the decision from the previous day, yet here she was requesting the same favor. He sighed silently, knowing he would have to remain firm. "Madam," he said carefully, "I am afraid the limousine cannot be used for personal requests. It is reserved for official purposes only, and I must follow the Queen's legacy." Camilla's smile faded. She looked around and noticed a few visitors gathering near the gates, curious about the growing tension. Some were palace employees, while others were local visitors hoping to catch a glimpse of royal history. The crowd's presence made Camilla feel a mixture of pride and nervousness. She wanted to demonstrate her importance, yet she also felt the weight of the guard's dedication. "Thomas," she said, her tone calm but insistent, "my son has grown up hearing stories about the Queen and her golden limousine. This experience would mean the world to him. Surely there is some way to allow him even a short ride." Thomas took a deep breath. He knew that bending the rules even slightly could set a precedent, and the late Queen would have wanted the car to remain protected. "Madam," he replied firmly, "I cannot allow this. My duty is to honor and protect the vehicle, and it is not something to be granted for individual requests, no matter how noble the reason." Oliver tugged lightly at his mother's sleeve. "Mom, maybe we should not push it," he said softly. His voice carried a maturity beyond his age, reflecting his understanding of the situation. Camilla glanced down at her son and felt a pang of hesitation. She wanted to insist, yet she also wanted to be a good example for Oliver. She paused for a moment, considering her next words carefully. "I understand your position, Thomas," she said, her voice quieter than before. "But do you understand why this is so important to my son? To see history and feel a connection to it. This is not just about the car. It is about dreams, imagination, and learning respect for greatness." Thomas nodded, appreciating her perspective but remaining firm. "I understand, madam, but respect for history also means following rules." The Queen valued patience, honor, and responsibility. She would not want her vehicle to be used without proper reason. Camilla felt a mixture of frustration and admiration. She admired Thomas's loyalty and discipline, even as she wished he would grant her request. She glanced at Oliver, who was quietly observing the scene, his eyes wide and curious. "I suppose you are right," Camilla said finally. "Perhaps I am being too forward. Yet I hope one day my son can understand the importance of such symbols and appreciate them fully." Thomas's expression softened slightly. "That is a wise thought, madam. Teaching children the value of history and patience is one of the greatest gifts a parent can give." The crowd around them began to shift. Some whispered in admiration of Thomas's dedication, while others quietly observed Camilla's change in attitude. It was clear that the situation had captured the attention of many, yet no one stepped forward. The tension in the air was replaced with quiet curiosity. Lady Margaret, a kind-hearted palace official who had known the Queen personally, approached the scene. She had watched the standoff from a distance, waiting for the right moment to intervene. "Camilla," she said gently, "I see your desire for your son to experience something extraordinary. But this limousine represents more than a ride. It represents the Queen's service, her dedication, and her respect for history. To honor her memory, we must approach this with understanding, not insistence." Camilla looked at Lady Margaret, considering her words carefully. "I understand, Lady Margaret," she said slowly. "It is difficult to let go of something we have imagined for so long. Yet I see the value in your advice. We can admire and learn from it even if we cannot experience it directly." Oliver smiled brightly, his small hand still holding his mother's. "Mom, I like this idea. We can imagine stories about the Queen's journeys." "That will be our adventure today," Camilla nodded. She felt a wave of relief and pride. Her son's wisdom and patience had helped her see the situation more clearly. She turned to Thomas. "Thank you for your dedication and patience, Thomas. You have taught me and my son a valuable lesson about respect and history." Thomas inclined his head politely. "It is my honor, madam. Serving the late Queen's memory and teaching others about her legacy is a duty I take seriously." The crowd began to disperse slowly, many smiling at the peaceful resolution. Camilla realized that the lesson she had hoped to give her son had come full circle. Instead of experiencing the ride, Oliver had learned the value of patience, respect, and understanding history. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Camilla and Oliver walked along the palace gardens. They stopped by the fountains, watched the birds flutter in the trees, and imagined the journeys the golden limousine had taken across the country. Each story they created together felt like a new adventure, more magical than any ride in a car could provide. "Mom, I like imagining the trips the Queen took," Oliver said, his voice filled with excitement. "We can pretend we are on an adventure just like her." Camilla smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart. "Yes, Oliver. We can learn from history and create our own adventures. The lessons we take from the past are far more valuable than any ride." Lady Margaret watched them from a distance, her face filled with gentle approval. She had witnessed the standoff, the tension, and the eventual change of heart. The Queen's legacy had been honored, and a new generation had begun to understand its value. By the end of the morning, Camilla and Oliver had explored every corner of the gardens. They had laughed, imagined, and learned together. The golden limousine stood nearby, gleaming in the sunlight, a symbol of history and respect. Though they had not ridden in it, the memory of the day would stay with them forever. Camilla realized that the true treasure was not the car itself, but the lessons it represented. She looked at Oliver, who was skipping lightly along the path, his joy evident in every movement. "Oliver," she said, "today we discovered something more important than any luxury. We learned about patience, respect, and honoring those who came before us." Oliver nodded happily. "I understand, Mom. I had so much fun imagining the Queen's trips. It was like our own adventure." Camilla hugged him tightly. "Yes, my dear. Sometimes the best adventures are the ones we create with our imagination, guided by respect and kindness." As they left the palace grounds, Camilla took one last look at the golden limousine. Its polished surface reflected the sunlight, shining like a promise of dreams to come. She knew that one day, with patience, respect, and understanding, she and Oliver might experience the car in a proper way. For now, they carried with them a lesson that no ride could ever teach, a lesson of honor, respect, and the joy of imagining great stories together. The following day, Camilla found herself thinking about the golden limousine once again. Even though she and Oliver had spent a wonderful day imagining stories in the palace gardens, she could not help but feel a small tug in her heart. The desire to see the car up close still lingered, and the thought of Oliver experiencing it made her restless. Oliver, on the other hand, seemed perfectly content. He had learned to appreciate the palace gardens, the stories of the Queen, and the lessons hidden in history. He understood that some treasures were meant to be admired and respected rather than possessed. "Mom," Oliver said as they walked down the palace pathway, "do you think the Queen would have wanted us to respect her limousine more than ride in it?" Camilla paused. She looked at her son, noting the innocence and wisdom in his small face. "I believe so, Oliver," she said softly. "The Queen valued patience, respect, and understanding. She would want us to learn from the history of her life and her work, not just enjoy the luxury of her possessions." As they approached the palace gates once more, Camilla noticed a familiar figure standing near the golden limousine. It was Lady Margaret, the palace official who had spoken to them the previous day. Lady Margaret's calm presence brought a sense of reassurance. She smiled warmly when she saw Camilla and Oliver approaching. "Good morning, Camilla," Lady Margaret said kindly. "I hope to see you again. I wanted to share a story about the Queen's limousine that you might find inspiring." Camilla's eyes lit up. "We would love to hear it," she replied. Oliver's face mirrored his mother's excitement. Lady Margaret led them to a quiet part of the garden, where the sunlight filtered through the leaves of the tall trees, creating a peaceful atmosphere. "The Queen's limousine," Lady Margaret began, "was not just a vehicle. It carried memories, lessons, and moments that shaped the lives of many people. The Queen always believed that respect for history was as important as the experiences themselves." Camilla listened intently. She realized that this was a lesson she had not fully understood before. Her desire to experience the limousine had made her overlook the deeper meaning behind it. "Madam," Lady Margaret continued, "many visitors have asked to ride in the limousine. Most are disappointed when they cannot, but a few have learned the value of patience, respect, and imagination. They realize that sometimes imagining an experience can be just as meaningful as living it." Oliver's eyes sparkled. "Like yesterday, Mom. We imagined adventures in the limousine and it was so much fun." Camilla smiled at her son. She realized that he had absorbed the lesson faster than she had. "Yes, Oliver. You understood something very important. We learned to respect the Queen's wishes and to create our own stories. Lady Margaret nodded. Exactly. The Queen's legacy is more than objects or luxury. It is about the principles she lived by: honor, patience, and respect. When we follow these principles, we carry her memory forward. Camilla felt a wave of gratitude for Lady Margaret's guidance. Thank you, Lady Margaret. I now see that there is more to the limousine than I first realized. It is not just a car. It is a symbol of the Queen's life and lessons. Lady Margaret smiled warmly. I am glad you understand. And it is clear that your son has already learned a valuable lesson. That is a wonderful gift to give him. Oliver beamed. I will remember this forever, Mom. We can imagine adventures, and that will be our special memory. As they continued their walk through the gardens, Camilla noticed other visitors admiring the palace grounds. Some were taking photographs while others were simply enjoying the peaceful beauty. Camilla realized that the palace itself was full of lessons and experiences, even without the golden limousine. She turned to Oliver. You know, Oliver, the Queen's life was full of challenges and responsibilities. The limousine was only a part of her story. The lessons she left behind are far more important than any ride we could have. Oliver nodded thoughtfully. I understand, Mom. Learning about her life is like an adventure, too. We can imagine what it was like for her and how she treated people with respect. Camilla felt a deep sense of pride in her son. He had not only understood the lesson but had embraced it with joy. She realized that this was a moment of growth for both of them, a moment that would stay with them forever. As they approached the golden limousine, Camilla felt a mix of admiration and respect. The car gleamed in the sunlight, its polished surface reflecting the beauty of the palace gardens. She ran her fingers lightly over the smooth surface, careful not to touch too much, and whispered to Oliver, Even if we cannot ride in it today, we can still appreciate its history and the lessons it represents. Oliver nodded. It feels magical, Mom. I can imagine the Queen riding in it, visiting people and spreading kindness everywhere. Camilla smiled. She realized that imagination was a powerful tool, capable of creating experiences that were just as valuable as reality. The golden limousine had become more than a dream. It had become a symbol of patience, respect, and creativity. Lady Margaret watched them with quiet satisfaction. She had seen many visitors come and go, but few had understood the deeper meaning behind the Queen's possessions. Camilla and Oliver had shown genuine curiosity, respect, and a willingness to learn. It was clear that they had absorbed the lessons of history and tradition. Camilla, Lady Margaret said gently, the most important experiences in life are not always the ones we can touch or possess. Sometimes the experiences that shape us are the ones we imagine, the ones we reflect upon, and the ones we share with others. Camilla looked at her son, who was gazing thoughtfully at the limousine. You are right, Lady Margaret, she said. I now understand that. Yesterday we learned the importance of patience. Today we are learning the value of imagination and respect. Oliver smiled. And we can share these stories with our friends too. They will learn from the Queen's life just like we did. Camilla felt a warmth in her heart. She realized that the lesson of the golden limousine was not just for her and Oliver, but for anyone who wished to understand history, respect, and the beauty of imagination. She had come to the palace seeking a ride, but she was leaving with something far greater, a sense of understanding and a memory that would last a lifetime. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, Camilla and Oliver slowly walked back toward the palace gates. The golden limousine gleamed behind them, a silent reminder of the lessons they had learned. Camilla held Oliver's hand tightly, feeling the bond between them grow stronger with each step. Mom, Oliver said softly, I am glad we came here. We learned so much and it was fun imagining the Queen's adventures. Camilla smiled and hugged him gently. Yes, Oliver. Today was special. We discovered that respect, patience, and imagination are more valuable than any car or luxury. And we learned this together, which makes it even more important. Lady Margaret approached them one last time before they left. Remember, Camilla, the Queen's legacy is carried forward by those who respect it. By teaching Oliver these lessons, you are helping to honor her memory in the best possible way. Camilla nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. Thank you, Lady Margaret. We will always remember this day and the lessons we learned. As they stepped out of the palace grounds, Camilla glanced back at the golden limousine one last time. Its polished surface reflected the soft glow of the setting sun, shimmering like a beacon of history and wisdom. She realized that the true magic of the day had not been in riding the limousine, but in understanding the meaning behind it, and in sharing those lessons with her son. Oliver skipped lightly beside her, his eyes bright with excitement. "Mom, can we imagine another adventure tomorrow?" Camilla smiled and squeezed his hand. "Of course, Oliver. Every day can be an adventure if we use our imagination and respect the world around us." And so, they walked home together, hearts full of joy, minds full of imagination, and a memory that would last far longer than any ride in a golden limousine. The lesson of the day was clear. The greatest treasures in life are not things we own, but the understanding, respect, and imagination we carry in our hearts. The next morning, Camilla awoke with a quiet determination. She had spent the previous 2 days exploring the palace gardens and learning lessons from Lady Margaret about patience, respect, and the value of history. Oliver, meanwhile, had grown more curious and thoughtful. He often spoke about the Queen's life, imagining what it must have been like to carry such responsibility and respect. Camilla looked at her son as he tied his shoes. "Oliver, today we will return to the palace," she said gently. "I want to learn more about the Queen's life and the stories behind the golden limousine." Oliver's eyes sparkled. "I want to learn too, Mom. Maybe today we can imagine another adventure with the limousine." Camilla smiled, appreciating his enthusiasm. Though she still felt a quiet desire to see the limousine up close, she understood that imagination and respect were just as powerful as experiencing it firsthand. She had learned that the lessons behind the car were far more important than the luxury itself. As they approached the palace gates, Thomas, the senior guard, noticed them and gave a respectful nod. He remembered their previous encounters clearly and braced himself for another discussion. "Good morning, madam," Thomas said politely. "May I assist you today?" Camilla returned the greeting with a polite smile. "Good morning, Thomas. We are here to learn more about the Queen's history and to admire the golden limousine once again." Thomas's expression softened. He appreciated the change in her attitude. She no longer seemed focused on demanding the ride. Instead, she was eager to understand the importance of the car and the legacy it represented. "Madam," Thomas said carefully, "the Queen's limousine is indeed a symbol of her life and work. It carries stories, memories, and lessons. I will gladly answer any questions you have about it, but the vehicle itself cannot be used for personal rides." Camilla nodded. "I understand, Thomas. I now see that respecting history is more important than satisfying personal desires. My son and I wish to learn, not take." Thomas's eyes reflected approval. "That is wise, madam. The late Queen would have appreciated your understanding and willingness to respect her legacy." Lady Margaret approached them once again, her gentle presence bringing a sense of warmth. "Camilla," she said kindly, "I am glad to see you and Oliver returning with a spirit of curiosity and respect. Today I will share more stories about the limousine and the Queen's travels, so you can truly appreciate its importance." Camilla's eyes brightened. "Thank you, Lady Margaret. We are eager to listen." Lady Margaret led them to a quiet spot near the palace where the sun cast a soft glow over the gardens. She began to recount tales of the Queen's journeys in the golden limousine, visits to schools, hospitals, and towns across the kingdom. Each story highlighted the Queen's compassion, dedication, and the respect she showed to all people she met. Oliver listened intently, his eyes wide with amazement. "Mom, the Queen used the limousine to help people and show kindness. That makes it even more special." Camilla nodded. "Yes, Oliver. It is not just a car. It is a symbol of service, respect, and leadership. I am glad we are learning this together." Lady Margaret smiled. "Exactly. The Queen believed that respect for history and the people around you was more valuable than any material possession. This lesson is something that cannot be measured in luxury or wealth, but in character and understanding." Camilla felt a deep sense of realization. She had initially focused on the desire for luxury, but now she understood the true value of what she had admired for so long. It was not the car itself that was important, but the lessons it represented and the inspiration it provided. As they walked around the palace gardens, Camilla and Oliver discussed the stories they had heard. They imagined the Queen driving through towns, waving to the citizens and spreading kindness wherever she went. Each story became a small adventure, filling their hearts with joy and understanding. "Mom," Oliver said softly, "I think I understand now. We can have adventures in our imagination, and we can learn from the Queen's life too. That makes it even better than riding the limousine." Camilla smiled and hugged him gently. "You are right, Oliver. Imagination and respect can create experiences that are even more meaningful than reality. Today we are learning lessons that we will carry with us forever." Thomas observed them quietly from a distance. He had seen many visitors over the years, but few had shown the patience and openness that Camilla and Oliver displayed. Their change of heart was admirable, and he could sense that they were absorbing the true meaning of the Queen's legacy. Lady Margaret continued to guide them through the palace grounds, sharing stories of the Queen's kindness, intelligence, and dedication. Camilla listened attentively, realizing that these lessons were far more valuable than any personal desire she had held for a ride in the golden limousine. After a while, Camilla turned to Lady Margaret. "Thank you for showing us the true meaning of the limousine. We have learned so much today, and I feel that we have grown because of it." Lady Margaret smiled warmly. "It is a pleasure to share these lessons. The Queen's legacy is meant to inspire understanding, respect, and imagination. By appreciating it in this way, you and Oliver honor her memory." As the afternoon sun began to soften, Camilla and Oliver took one last walk around the gardens. The golden limousine gleamed nearby, reflecting the sunlight and standing as a silent symbol of history and honor. Camilla reached out and lightly touched the polished surface, feeling a sense of connection not to luxury, but to the lessons and values it represented. "Mom," Oliver said softly, "I am glad we came here today. We learned about patience, respect, and imagination. I feel like we had a real adventure without even riding in the limousine." Camilla smiled and held his hand tightly. "Yes, Oliver. Today has been a true adventure. We learned lessons that no luxury could ever teach, and we experienced them together. That is more valuable than anything else." Thomas approached them with a gentle nod. "Madam, it is clear that you and your son understand the significance of the Queen's legacy. You have shown respect, patience, and a willingness to learn. That is the greatest honor anyone can give." Camilla felt a wave of gratitude. "Thank you, Thomas. Your guidance and patience have helped us see the true value of this experience." Lady Margaret joined them, smiling. The Queen's life and her limousine carry lessons that go beyond appearances. Today, you have both understood that, and that is something very special. As they left the palace grounds, Camilla glanced back at the golden limousine one last time. Its polished surface reflected the soft light of the late afternoon, standing as a reminder of history, respect, and imagination. She realized that the true treasure was not in experiencing luxury, but in understanding the meaning behind it. Oliver skipped happily beside her, his eyes full of excitement and joy. "Mom, can we imagine another adventure tomorrow?" Camilla laughed gently. "Of course, Oliver. Every day can be an adventure if we use our imagination and respect the lessons around us." As they walked away from the palace, Camilla felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had come seeking a ride in a golden limousine, but she was leaving with something far more meaningful, a lesson in patience, respect, and the power of imagination. That day, Camilla and Oliver created a memory that would last forever. They had learned that the greatest treasures in life are not things we own, but the understanding, respect, and imagination we carry in our hearts. The golden limousine would always shine in their minds, not as a vehicle of luxury, but as a symbol of lessons learned and values embraced. Camilla smiled as she held Oliver's hand. "Remember, my dear, the most important adventures are the ones that teach us about life, kindness, and respect. Everything else is secondary." Oliver nodded thoughtfully. "I understand, Mom. I'm glad we came here. It was an adventure full of lessons and stories." Camilla felt a warmth in her heart. She knew that this experience had changed both her and her son. They had grown together, learned together, and created memories that would inspire them for years to come. The golden limousine had given them something far greater than a ride. It had given them understanding, respect, and a shared adventure of imagination. And so, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Camilla and Oliver walked home, their hearts full of joy, their minds filled with stories and their spirits enriched by the lessons of the day. The golden limousine gleamed in the distance, a symbol not of wealth but of history, respect, and the adventure of learning. The morning sun shone brightly over the palace grounds as Camilla and Oliver prepared for another visit. Over the past few days, they had learned important lessons about respect, patience, and the value of history. Camilla felt a quiet pride in her son, who had embraced these lessons with joy and curiosity. "Mom," Oliver said as he tightened the laces on his shoes, "I'm excited to see the palace again. Maybe today we can imagine a new adventure." Camilla smiled warmly. "Yes, Oliver. Today we will continue to learn more about the Queen's life and the stories behind the golden limousine. But remember, the most important thing is to respect history and use our imagination." Hand in hand, they walked toward the palace gates. The guards, including Thomas, recognized them and greeted them with polite nods. Thomas's stern expression was softened by the sight of Camilla and Oliver, who had shown such understanding in the days before. "Good morning, Madam, young Oliver," Thomas said. "Welcome back. Are you ready to explore more of the Queen's history today?" Camilla returned his greeting. "Good morning, Thomas. Yes, we are. We are eager to learn more." Lady Margaret approached them with her usual calm smile. "Camilla, Oliver, I am glad you have returned. Today I would like to share stories about the people the Queen helped and how the limousine played a role in bringing happiness and hope." Camilla nodded. "That sounds wonderful. We are ready to listen." Lady Margaret led them to a quiet courtyard, where the sunlight danced across the marble floor. The Queen used her limousine not just for travel, but to visit people who needed support, she began. She believed that kindness and attention were just as important as her public duties. The car became a symbol of her care, showing that even small gestures could have great meaning. Oliver listened with wide eyes. "Mom, the limousine helped people? That makes it even more special." Camilla nodded. "Yes, Oliver. It shows that history and symbols are about more than luxury. They are about the lessons they carry and the values they represent." Lady Margaret continued. "Many times the Queen traveled to schools, hospitals, and villages in that golden limousine. Children, elderly people, and families would see her arrive and feel hope. She believed that showing respect and kindness could inspire others to be better and do good in their lives." Camilla's heart warmed as she listened. She realized that the true meaning of the limousine went far beyond what she had imagined. It was not a vehicle of status or personal pleasure. It was a tool for spreading respect, care, and positivity. Oliver spoke up softly. "Mom, I understand now. The Queen's car is like a symbol of kindness. We can learn from it even if we don't ride in it." Camilla smiled at him proudly. "Yes, Oliver, that is exactly the lesson. We are learning about life, respect, and imagination. Those lessons are more valuable than any ride could ever be." They spent the morning walking through the palace gardens, hearing more stories from Lady Margaret. She told them about the Queen's travels to distant towns, her conversations with children, and the efforts she made to understand and help people from all walks of life. Each story painted a picture of a leader who valued honor, patience, and care above all else. Camilla and Oliver imagined themselves accompanying the Queen on her journeys, helping people, and spreading kindness. They laughed, imagined, and created their own adventures inspired by history. Camilla realized that this was a lesson her son would remember for life. True wealth comes from learning, understanding, and sharing kindness with others. At lunchtime, Camilla and Oliver sat on a bench near the palace fountain. The golden limousine gleamed nearby, reflecting the sunlight in a way that made it seem magical. Camilla touched the polished surface lightly, feeling a deep connection not to luxury, but to the values it represented. "Mom," Oliver said quietly, "I think the best part is that we can imagine adventures and still learn something important. That is better than riding the limousine." Camilla hugged him. "You are right, Oliver. The lessons we have learned here are treasures we will carry forever. This experience is more valuable than anything else." As the afternoon progressed, Thomas and Lady Margaret joined Camilla and Oliver for a short walk around the palace perimeter. They spoke about the Queen's wisdom, the importance of respecting history, and how imagination can turn knowledge into meaningful experiences. Camilla listened carefully, realizing that her desire for the limousine had transformed into an appreciation for history, tradition, and the opportunity to learn with her son. "Camilla," Lady Margaret said gently, "the true honor is not in having what belongs to someone else, but in understanding the meaning behind it. You and Oliver have learned this well." Camilla smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "Thank you, Lady Margaret. I now understand that true treasures are lessons, memories, and experiences shared with loved ones." Oliver nodded enthusiastically. "And we can imagine more adventures every day. That will make us even happier." Before leaving, Camilla knelt beside Oliver and whispered, "Remember, my dear, respect and imagination can take us further than anything else. We may not have ridden in the limousine, but we have gained memories and lessons that will last forever." Oliver's eyes sparkled. "I will remember, Mom. I think today is one of the best days of my life." As they walked out of the palace gates, Camilla looked back at the golden limousine one last time. It stood shining in the sunlight, a symbol not of wealth, but of history, honor, and learning. She realized that the true value of this experience was not in possession or luxury, but in the lessons they had embraced and the memories they had created together. Thomas watched them leave, his expression one of quiet satisfaction. He had witnessed their journey of understanding and growth, and he knew that the lessons learned that day would remain with them forever. The Queen's legacy had been honored, not by a ride, but by respect, imagination, and the love of a mother and her child. Lady Margaret approached Thomas. "They have learned well. Camilla's change of heart shows that even desire for luxury can be transformed into a deeper understanding when guided by respect and patience." Thomas nodded. "It is rare to see such a sincere transformation. They have embraced the true meaning of the Queen's legacy. That is worth more than any ride in the golden limousine." Camilla and Oliver walked home slowly, holding hands and talking about the adventures they had imagined. They discussed how the Queen had shown kindness, how people were inspired by her actions, and how they could apply the lessons in their own lives. Every step felt meaningful, filled with the knowledge that respect and imagination were the greatest treasures of all. As they reached their home, Camilla stopped for a moment and looked at Oliver. "Do you know what makes me happiest, Oliver?" she asked softly. "What, Mom?" he replied. "That we have learned something together. That we have turned a simple desire into an adventure of understanding and imagination. That is more valuable than anything else in the world." Oliver hugged her tightly. "I am happy too, Mom. We learned so much, and we had fun together." That evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Camilla and Oliver reflected on the days spent at the palace. They realized that the golden limousine had become more than a car. It was a symbol of history, respect, kindness, and imagination. They had learned that true experiences are created in the heart and mind, not just in what one can touch or possess. Camilla smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. She had come to the palace hoping for a luxurious experience for her son, but she had left with something far more valuable: the gift of learning, the joy of shared imagination, and the bond with her son strengthened by lessons of respect and kindness. Oliver yawned, leaning against his mother. "Mom, today was perfect. Can we imagine more adventures tomorrow?" Camilla nodded, hugging him close. "Yes, Oliver. Every day is a chance for a new adventure, and the best adventures are the ones that teach us about life, kindness, and respect." As night fell, the golden limousine remained in the palace courtyard, gleaming softly under the moonlight. It had served its purpose, not only as a vehicle of history but as a silent teacher of lessons that Camilla and Oliver would carry with them forever. The limousine had given them an experience that no ride could match, a memory filled with understanding, imagination, and respect. Camilla whispered to Oliver as they prepared for bed, "Remember, my dear, the greatest treasures are not things we own, but the lessons we learn and the memories we create together." Oliver smiled sleepily. "I will remember, Mom. I am happy we came here and learned so much." And so, with hearts full of joy and minds filled with imagination, Camilla and Oliver drifted into sleep. They had gained something far more precious than a ride in a golden limousine. They had gained a memory to treasure for a lifetime, a lesson in respect and patience, and the understanding that true adventures are created in the heart and mind. The golden limousine remained at the palace, gleaming silently under the night sky. It had inspired lessons, respect, and imagination. It had reminded them that the greatest wealth in life is not luxury, but understanding, kindness, and the memories we carry with us.